What's up, guys? It's your girl Matt Cox from Maccouture Crafting. We are still here. We are still shooting intros, and we will be doing this until I don't know when. I think I have 10 intros to shoot today. It is what it is. We're going to get it done. This one is a fun one. You guys know that I'm about Disney inspired quilts sometimes. I have my Disney stuff, and then I have my modern stuff, and then sometimes I have a country feel. I've got a boho one coming up, but this one here is a Disney quilt. And it's not just any Disney quilt. This might be, I think this is my favorite. No, the Disney Bound is still such a cool quilt. Okay, anyway, it's a Disney themed quilt. It's Coco inspired, and I am loving it. The front of the quilt is dictated by the shape. So the front, even though it's not as intricate as the back, it's the front because it's a circle. And then the back, you need to make a square so that it's enough for your long armor to do what they need to do. This is a super busy quilt. It's me, so duh. The front of the quilt has the Frida fabric on there. I am a fan of Frida Kahlo. She's an artist. And that is absolutely my favorite part of the movie Coco is when he goes to see Frida. Like, it's just excellent. She's such an artist. They nailed it. You get the artsy vibe from her. Her look was great. The back of this quilt is a mix between Frida, Mama Imelda, and the aunt. You'll see. You'll see when you see it. I used the skull pattern from And So I loved it. It is a beast, and it is not for the faint of heart. There are people who did them for the first time. There's a woman who did it for the first time. I'm going to actually insert her picture here because she deserves a true mention. Sometimes people come into this world of quilting and they just have a gift and you can see it. She's one of those people who sees something and then she hacks it, or she hacked it and she hacked the heck out of it. There were some really cool versions of this done, and it was during a sew along. I was way off as far as timing, but I still completed mine in a very timely manner, I think. One of the beyond weird things is I pieced an 80 by 80 quilt for a 60 by 60 or like 65 by 65 quilt front. And my mother was like, this is insane. They're going to cut all that off. I was like, yeah, I know. But I wanted it to waterfall off. And I didn't want to do the math and I didn't want to figure out where to stop. I was going to have to buy the yardage anyway. It's just that there was a lot of work that went into the yardage that got cut off. It was my vision. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet. You have to take the L. And that was an L because I lost some of the deeper reds on the outside. It's really still very, very cool, but if I were doing it again, I would take my time. I wouldn't rush, and I would plan for the transition of color on the back sides to happen a little faster so that I got a nice gradient of all the colors as opposed to having a gradient and then the deeper colors just get cut off. You'll see what I'm talking about when you see the quilt. I went ahead and I did the vinyl applique for all of the features on the face. And I did the floral headdress in capes because, why not? And that is my quilt, my Coco quilt. All around the parks right now. There's just so much inspiration. I was trying to get it done before the Day of the Dead, which was kind of the end of the quilt along, but it just didn't happen. I had surgery, I had things going on, life was happening. So I couldn't make it, but that's okay because I still got a chance to introduce Coco to my Coco Inspired quilt. So if you guys are interested to see how it's going to come together, keep watching. All right, thanks.
Everyone, hola amigos. Give a warm welcome to the storytellers of Plaza de la Familia and their musical celebration of Coco.
Hola amigas y amigos. Hello, buenas tardes, good evening. How is everybody doing today? My name is Mateo, and we are the storytellers of Plaza de la Familia. We are happy to see you here today as we celebrate the heartwarming story of Coco. In this wonderful story, a 12-year-old boy named Miguel sets off on an extraordinary adventure into the land of the dead, where he unlocks an age-old family mystery. Miguel's journey begins in Mexico, where he lives in the small town of Santa Cecilia with a very big family. And he shares a special bond with his great-grandmother, Coco. The Rivera family are proud shoemakers. A tradition started by Coco's mother when her husband left home to become a famous musician and never returned. Since that fateful day, music has been banned in the Rivera household. No music! Remember me. I sing my remember me. Don't let it make me cry. Even if I'm far away, I hold you in my heart. Secrets only you tonight we are apart. Remember. The Day of the Dead is a special time. We gather to honor our family and friends who have passed on. We create an authentic, a memorial altar to our departed loved ones. We set up photos, flowers, and candles, and a path of memories to light their way home. And so, it is on the eve of this family holiday that Miguel discovers a torn photo that leads him to believe his forgotten great-great-grandfather is actually Ernesto de la Cruz. Oh, there you are. Everybody say, hola, Miguel.
Hola, Miguel.
Muy bien. Okay, now, this is the moment on Miguel's fantastical journey where he meets a charming trickster named Hector, who helps him find the courage to fulfill his musical destiny. That's all.
What color is the sky and your red and your where should I put my shoes and your you say put them on your head and your make me poco loco, un poquitito loco, the way you yes, I'm running down, yes, I'm
Come see the blessing.
I'm only un poco loco.
Yes, Miguelito. Yes, Rodrigo Regila. You make me go loco, loco, un poquitito loco.
Yes, I'm running and I'm yes, I'm
Come see the blessing.
only un poco loco. But the for each other will live on forever. In every beat of my proud corazón.
Look, our story has come to an end, but our celebration continues here at Plaza Familia.
I just want to show you guys how I'm lining this up, and I wanted to talk you through it. So these flowers, I have decided to cut these at 6 inches because that way I'll be able to use all of them. Although what I really wanted to do was cut them at 7, but then you start jumping over into the next one, and then I would have only been able to use these 2. So in order to just get the most out of this, we are going to just cut it at 6. And you're probably like, why would you want it to cut it at 7? In order to use the full length of this ruler, the width here should have been 7 inches. So I'm gonna have to stop at about 31 and a half with the 6 inches across. No biggie. It'll save me money at the quilters, right? So I am doing a 1/2 inch above this flower, and then I'm looking at it and I'm going right down the center of her face, even though this flower is not dead center with her face. So I'm just going down here, and then I'm just going to cut this off, and then I am going to start with my idea. Let's go. Okay, so we are cutting these out. I hate that I did not keep and insert one of the Frida signatures. I put one to the side and I didn't use it. These are cut and stitch templates, and I love them for curves because it shows you exactly where to line things up. And if I can do a curve that fits, I bought 3 of these templates, I'm definitely going to use it because I struggle with curves, and this is a really cool way to make sure that your things line up. I'm trying to show you the tiny micro incisions there. But as you can see, I am just making sure that the points are on the side. This should be larger. If I was using this template, not for what I'm doing, but if I were just using it regularly, the fabric should be much larger than it is. You can see that the template is hanging off the sides, which is going to cause it to look kind of funny. Once I sew it together, you'll see that there's like a big gap on either side, but no worries, not a big deal. So I'm taking the top, the part that's going to meet the curve, and I am cutting the opposite side. And we'll do the same thing and take the scissors and do those little minor snips. You do not snip all the way to the 1/4 inch mark that is there. You don't have to use scissors. You can actually just mark it with a pen and line them up. I like the little incisions because they're easier for me to see. So we're just doing this a couple of times. I'm going to actually probably do this technique again on a different quilt because it's really cool how this turned out. So you see I'm just lining them up and I'm stitching little by little. We're going slow, we're not going fast. Line it up, and I push it up against that guard to make sure that I'm getting a 1/4 inch. And I lift that foot a little bit. You just work with it. I don't have to lift the presser foot, but I am. And watch, when we get to this end, you're gonna see it goes to the right to the edge, but when I flip it back to press it, you'll see that it looks kind of strange. See, on the right and the left hand side, you're like, why is that? Because it should be bigger. But I got just what I needed for the template. Look at that beautiful curve. Oh, it came out very, very, very nicely. Now we're going to lay down this large wedge, and I'm going to just put some tape so that I don't mess up and forget how far up I'm supposed to go. I've really been using a lot of this blue line painter's tape lately. I'm kind of in love with having it in the sewing room. I find that I use it a lot lately with marking off what it is that I need so that I don't get confused. I am using this fabric in this direction because the flowers get more dense to the right, and I like it. They get more dense towards the center of the quilt. Now we are just going to go around and cut this wedge out. And if I have measured properly, the wedge gets the widest right there at that white part up there. And it's perfect. And now we have a beautiful wedge. And I alternated between the black Fridas, or the Fridas on black fabric and the Frida on the white fabric. After looking at this Frida so long, I swear she looks just like Beyonce. I'm tempted to do a side-by-side comparison, but I guess I won't do that. I can't unsee it, but there's no sense in me doing that to you guys too. So we're just going to go ahead and cut this wedge out. You'll see that this is a very long wedge, and so I go on ahead and go around the sides and cut from the side of my table and the front of my table. Look at how pretty those would line up if I were sewing them together. Now we're grabbing this argyle fabric. Why on earth does this fabric run the direction that it does? Why doesn't it run up and down? I will never understand. So I'm actually cutting deep into this yardage, which annoys me. I wanted to be able to cut straight up and down, but you can see that the diamonds are going left and right, so it's a pain, but oh well. I'm cutting along the selvage. And I have folded this fabric. I think this fabric is folded. I think it is. So I might be getting 2 out of each cut. I cut so many more of these than I needed. I hope I find a project where I can use them because I cut a lot of these out. I think I gave them away actually in a stash giveaway. I don't know. So same. I'm just pulling them out little by little. And because it's a wedge, you can go, well, yeah, I flip it so that I get the most use out of the fabric. If I were to just use that same side and go all the way down, I would get fewer wedges.
Okay, so I have laid out everything. My original plan was to do some piecing for the argyle, but it's just not quite working out the way that I wanted it to. I probably could have thrown some solids in here so it was less busy, but your eye can rest on the Frida wedges, and I think that because this background is so tight, it doesn't read as a solid obviously, but it can actually recede back too. And if I take a picture of this from far enough away, I think it's not too busy. It's definitely a busy quilt. It's definitely a lot busier than anybody else would probably make, but it's really cool. This little scalloped find here, the way that we do that now, I think it's pretty cool. So I'm going to sew it all together and let's see what we get.
Okay, for the back, look at this. This is an A0 size of paper. I guess it's like 36 by 48. Love it. Look at how big those pieces are. So much better than printing out a ton of 8.5 by 11 sheets and taping them all together. From now on, I want a paper piece with those large sheets like that. So I'm looking for the pairs. I split this up into 4 quadrants. So I cut out all the pieces and put them in quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when I piece them, I'm going to grab the 2 that are identical. Each one has an identical side. And so you'll be pulling from 1 and 2 and then 3, from pile 1 and 2 and then pile 3 and 4. So here are my first 2 identical pieces. Now I am not going to show me piecing this entire thing continuously. That would be a bit much. But I will show you me doing this a couple of ways, and I'm going to talk through it a couple of times. So I'm just grabbing the first color. So the E tells me where it's going. The large 1, 2, 3, and 4 that's bold there tells me the order to sew the fabric in. And the number below that with the hashtag is telling me what color fabric to use. I have marked all these fabrics with those pins. Each one of those pins has a letter and a number on it for patterns so that you know which fabric is what and what piece of, just so that you can differentiate which fabric is which. So those are those little purple pins. That's the only purpose that they serve, is telling me what color. So basically paper piecing is like quilting by number. It's exactly what it's like. So I folded all of those folds on the line with my special ruler there. That's an add a quarter ruler. And make sure you get the pink one. The yellow ones are the old ones, and you want to try to get the one that has the graduating edge so that you can get some nice folds. I am putting the paper on the fabric to see how large of a piece I need. I always get just a touch more fabric so that I can be kind of generous in this way. So I noticed that this color is used twice on this piece. So I went back and grabbed it, and I'm just cutting off a piece that will fit. Paper piecing looks really weird if you have never seen it done before. But basically, you stitch down fabric onto the paper, and after you're finished, you just pull it out. You make sure that you shorten your stitch length so that you get a nice perforation on the paper, and then you toss it after you're finished. I'm using a Sew-Line glue pen. Love Sew-Line glue pens. They are convenient and inexpensive for the refills and fast. I am checking the size of this fabric on top of the paper. I'm lining it up so that the fabric is completely covering that side. I'm putting a little glue down so that one piece doesn't move. And then I just sew it on the line. You flip it back and then you trim. Once you get this down, it's just repetitive. You just keep doing it over and over and over again. A lot of over and over and over again. They talk about how accurate this can be. I have not found it to be accurate in the sense that when it comes time to join the pieces together, I struggle. Some people rip the paper and then join it so that they can get a better join, but I seem to get my stuff is always off. I have not figured out how to join these properly. I mean, I've stuck a pin in, I've done all the things. It's just, it never really comes out exactly the way that I want it to. I'm using that roller just to press the seams. You don't want to be pressing this with heat and steam because you'll start warping that paper. So I'm placing that add a quarter ruler there, and I'm making sure that this piece fits over that little 4. And we're going to go on ahead and stitch that down. Fold it back and give it a little roll, and we don't want it flapping around, so we're going to glue it down. And now we're just going to trim this piece out. We're completely finished with this piece. And I was working both sides at the same time. So if I glued, number 4 down, I glued number 4 down on the other piece. And that's one of the ways that I was able to save time and make it efficient. Because whatever colors you're pulling for one side, you're pulling those same colors, unless you super hack it like the lady I showed you in the beginning did. She super hacked it. Such a cool pattern she did. And everything was pieced. Go her. Go her. Alright, so we are trimming up all the pieces. You can't see it clearly here, but there is a 1/4 inch line that I am trimming right now. You leave the 1/4 inch, but you can see the line, and I just butt that ruler right up against it and trim it off. And I'm trimming off these little bitty dog ears too. Trimming off any loose threads, and there we have it. Beautiful.
Okay, I just wanted to talk to you guys while I was doing this, and as the thoughts were coming to my mind. First of all, these little pins here were lifesavers for marking. They are not to hold anything, they are just simply to mark. Also, I want to be sure to tell you guys, work in the pairs. So everything on this pattern has a pair. Work in pairs. When you pull it, pull pairs, and that way you're only pulling the colors that you need for that particular section. I'm having a ball with this. It's taking longer, but you guys know me. I'm always about fast, 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 and that's not always the case, but this is actually quite a fun pattern once you get going. It was freaking me out to start, but once I started, I'm really enjoying this. At this point, I've kind of got the face all done in the sense that they're cut out. After I get all these pieces done, then I'm going to work in quadrants and start to piece together the quadrants. I think that's what I'm going to do. So right now the face is pretty much done. Then I'm going to work these two, and then I'll work these two, and then we will sew it all together. All right, let's see how that goes. Okay, so I have this piece that I need to trim, and my add a quarter ruler is obviously not long enough for me to trim the entire piece in one fell swoop because these are huge pieces, which I like. So in order to do that, I am just gonna go and I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna glide it up and just run them together nice and slowly, and bam, that's gone. Also, with these huge pieces, I have found that I've had to use some pins and whatnot to secure the fabric, which is not a big deal. You just use the pins. All right, we're gonna add piece number 5. I should say color number 15. I shouldn't say piece number 5. Piece number 5 is color number 15. And I'm looking to see how this works, and this is gonna be a nice and easy piece. So I'm going to be able to get this piece. It covers 5. I'm just checking the size. 5 stops right here. And I can tell because I've pre-folded my paper. So I'm just gonna stretch this out a bit and lay it on top. And I'm making sure that I can see a little red on the other side of that orange, which I can. We're gonna fluff out all this fabric and make sure we don't have anything bunching up back there. I can actually cut that off because that's just excess. And I can see this. I am going to lift this up and I'm just gonna put a couple of pins just to secure it this way. And one up here. This way. Just to secure it through the paper so that when I sew it, we're good. Maybe I'll put one more down here just for good measure. And this is the line that I'm going to be sewing. I'm sewing piece number 5 now. And we're just going to cut this away. All right, let's do it. So we've sewn that piece, and I just realized I didn't sew down piece 4, which is not a huge issue because on this piece 4 is way over yonder, over here. So I could really sew all of that and then come back to 4, even though it says do 1, 2, 3, then 4. All right, so let's flip this over. Let's get rid of this. And I'm just tugging at it and I'm running my fingers along just to smooth it out. Am I gonna do 5? Maybe I'll go back to 4. Why not? 4 is a nice, easy, tiny piece. It makes me happy. I'm gonna fold this paper back so that I expose the fabric that was left over from piece number 1. I'm gonna grab this here and we're gonna take off this excess fabric. And I forget what color. Piece number 4 is fabric color 9, which is my lightest of the colored section. And I'm just checking to see which direction this triangle is supposed to be sewn. And this one's gonna be a touch. Nope, this one's gonna be good. I just have to be sure that I use it right here. This needs to be put exactly right there. And that is pretty easy to see. So I'm going to line it up so that the tip is just about there. We're gonna move this over. I'm gonna put my finger down and just be sure that there's fabric right under where my finger is. And there is. I clear it with no problem. None whatsoever. I'm gonna open this up and sew down this line. Alright, we sewed down that line. Let's see if we caught the tip. There's some extra here, so if it doesn't reach all the way there, we should be fine. Let's see. Did I get it? Did I get enough? Nope, it's short. Oh, I hate that I did that. Actually, it's just It's just enough. No, it's enough. That little tip, I knew that tip was going to give me some issues, and I had all this fabric down here to play with, but no worries. This is going to be cut off here and caught. It's going to be cut off. I have some to trim, and then this is the 1/4 inch seam, so I can catch this for sure in the 1/4 inch seam, so I'm not going to sweat it, not today. So I'm using a sew line glue pen because they are lovely to do some quick basting, and I use this around the edges. Otherwise this would just be flapping around, and we don't want that. So I'm giving it a little taut pull, and I'm just smoothing it out on this glue, and then we'll flip it over and trim it, and you'll see how it comes out. So we sewed down that line, which was right here, and we're just gonna flip this, and we're gonna finger press and just pull it taut. Like we said before, we're gonna come around to this side, we're gonna throw some glue on here, and then trim this bad boy up. I'm putting glue in that 1/4 inch seam, and I'm using a generous amount of glue because I don't want this flopping up and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to pull it pretty good, and we're going to flip it over and just press it like that. And now we're going to trim it up. I'm looking at this 1/4 inch mark right here. It's got the sandpaper kind of look. That's where the grippy is, so it's easy to see. This is a 2.5 by 18.5 inch ruler. I really like this ruler. It's by Creative Grids. And we'll trim it all the way. And this is what the piece looks like when it is all trimmed up. I've got a touch of white showing here, but once I play with this a little bit, and it's gonna get caught in that seam, so you won't see it. I'm not really concerned that it's gonna cause a hole. I think I'll be fine. On to the next million pieces. So the million pieces have now been sewn together, and this is what it looks like before I start ripping the papers out. Papers have been ripped. I did a pretty good job. Not a lot of little white pieces hanging out there. And there it is finished before I've added any decoration onto it. And here I have cut out some K facet flowers that have been fused on to heat and bond. And then I just kind of stitched around them with some invisible thread to tack them down really well after I found good placement. Now I'm getting ready to use my Cricut heat and bond, not heat and bond, my Cricut vinyl. I cut these out, kind of took some Cricut stuff, played with it, figured out which designs I wanted, where I wanted to put the things on the face, that kind of stuff. Cut it out, did a little weeding, and then I just stuck them all together so that they would all be right there together. I knew it wouldn't harm it. And I put these, they're kind of like, yeah, they're just heat up stickers basically. And I'm just checking the placement here. Figuring out which one I want to go where, which side I want up, which side I want down. And I decided that I wanted it that way. So now we are going to do one at a time. With this, you've really got to play with it. I find that this Cricut Easy, what is that thing called? The heat press does not really like that wool mat. It does not like that wool mat. I have the most difficult time with the wool mat in this Easy Press. It doesn't work well. But once you figure out the settings, you can, matter of fact, I get better results with just a regular iron when I use that wool mat. But you just keep going until you can simply peel that off. And that's pretty much the quilt, guys. That's how it worked out. Easy peasy, there it is finished. If you guys like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, bye-bye.